I'm just gonna be walking you through how I make a beat. I'm getting the drums from Treat Her Like a Prostitute by Slick Rick. There's a lot of scratching and horns and things like that in the sample of the part I want to use, so I'm gonna be trimming it and rearranging it to just get the drums. I use Sonar X3, which is a pretty outdated DAW. They don't even update it anymore. But it's what I'm used to. It's the DAW I started with, and I'm pretty proficient at it, so that's what I use. It seems daunting switching to a new DAW. I know I'll have to do it eventually, but for now I'm sticking with Sonar. Currently looking for the part of the kick that doesn't have the scratching in it. You gotta start small with these things and then work outward. Now I'm opening up Splice. It's incredible what you can do in the internet age with sampling. There's so many royalty-free samples and so many samples you can get online. You don't have to dig through crates of records so much anymore. I mean, I like using records, but it's like a specific feel when you're using a record. A record plays a little faster than it was recorded, so it's pitched up slightly. So like if you're doing like singing, it's not ideal because you're playing with microtones. Especially if you're like an auto-tuner like myself, it doesn't really work out. But records are nice for getting that sort of hiss and scratch and, you know, sort of a worn feel. So sometimes I use records, but oftentimes I just use MP3s. And I like MP3s because they're kind of crushed. You get that slightly crushed sound. In an ideal world, I would have something like an MPC where you really get that crushed sound. I don't really know what I'm looking for right now. I'm just trying things out and seeing what works. Just whatever I find interesting. I like that chord. And then I do the old trick where I just tune it down by 5. I've decided that the Wurlitzer is going to be my main instrument. So I'm just trying to tune things and find things that match the Wurlitzer, because that's sort of my bass at the moment. Simple is oftentimes good. One of the difficult things about sampling is that you want there to be forward movement and momentum. You don't want the song to just loop the same 4 bars over and over and over. And that's sort of where sampling is limited. Just looking for something different and interesting that I can add to it to give it a bit more flavor. Because right now it's pretty boring. Now I'm deciding to add some bass. I use Dimension. It comes with Sonar, but it's quite a good pad. Really good bass sounds, especially the live samples. I'm going to my tried and true, the dull fingered. I decided I wanted the bass to fall on the and, just to give it a little something, you know, just so it's not 1s and 2s all the time. Drums kind of set the rhythmic stage, so having them fall on 1s and 2s just makes sense. But the things going on around it, like, you want a bit of variety, you want a bit of rhythmic difference. That's the thing about making music for me, is like, I approach it with a sense of play, you know, just no real expectations or direction, just kind of feeling it out, seeing what works. Now I'm deciding to beef the drums up a little bit. I have some favorite drum samples that I like to use, so I'm just looking for those real quick. Starting with the kick. I know exactly which kick I'm going to use. It's Right Stuff. I just love that kick so much. It gives so much beef to a sample. And of course I know which snare I'm going to use. This is just a nice big snare. Lots of punch. That's really what I'm looking for, is punch. Punch and beef. Of course we get a lot of that Slick Rick shaker. I feel like Slick Rick's music is kind of defined by that shaker. He uses it in almost every song. So now I've decided that what I have is boring and it's not going anywhere. So I decide to look up songs at 94 BPM just to see if there's anything that I can sample that works. I'm pretty much scrapping what I got. And then, oh, Phil Collins. I love Phil Collins. As soon as I heard it, I knew this would be a great sample. It's soulful, it's got movement. There's not too much happening in it that would collide with the drums. The bass is nice. And lo and behold, it works very nicely with the drums. Ideally, you want a song to have multiple sections, so having different parts of the song to move to really helps. I mean, who wants to listen to the same loop over and over and over again? That's sort of one of the trappings of hip-hop and sample-based production, is you kind of get caught in loops, and they just kind of go over and over again ad nauseum, and it can get really boring. At this point, I'm thinking of adding bass, MIDI bass. I think I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. Yeah, the old-fashioned way being having two clips. One that's EQ'd without the bass and one that's EQ'd with only the bass. And then mixing those two together. And really, I'm looking for multiple samples so that I can do multiple sections, because you've got the loop for the verse and you've got the loop for the chorus, but you want to add and subtract things throughout the song to give it a feeling of momentum, especially when you're working with samples, because otherwise the sample is just going to repeat ad nauseum and it's going to be boring. It doesn't matter if it's in exactly the same key. The only thing that really matters is it in major or is it in minor? Because otherwise you can just transpose it. Just checking to see how it sounds with everything else. And it sounds great. I think this is about the time where I went out for a smoke. You get to a certain point in a song and you're like, okay, this is getting somewhere. Time for a square. It's definitely more interesting than the lo-fi vibe that I was going for earlier. I really prefer sampling songs over doing splice-oriented songs. I used to do more songs where I used a lot of splice samples and did a lot of cutting and pitch shifting and manipulating and all this. But, it's hard to make things sound interesting with just these little clips of music that don't really seem to go anywhere. That's kind of the pitfall of using splice, is that a lot of the samples just don't really go anywhere. Whereas when you're sampling a song, you get all these cool chordal movements and textures and different instruments and It just makes for better songs, honestly. I'm very liberal in my use of sampling. I believe that if a song can be sampled, it should be sampled. I don't care about all this copyright BS, you know, fair use, whatever. I don't care. You know, I'm a traditionalist. I'm very inspired by like the 90s mostly. Because, you know, it was fair game, you know, whatever you could sample, do it. And also, sampling is a cool way of putting people on to music. I mean, you're taking a chunk from a song and you're basically saying, hey, check this out. This is good, isn't it? I've discovered quite a few bands from sampling, quite a few great songs, because you hear the sample and you want to know where it came from, what the origin is. I mean, that put me onto like the Isley Brothers, Parliament, Zap, hearing them in sample form first. You could say that's part of the dialogue of music. The song process for me always starts with the beat, and I never know what I'm looking for when I start a beat. I just start it and see where it goes. I just play around. Then eventually I find something that I find interesting or catchy, and I just run with that. There's a lot of songs that never make it to the light of day. You know, I might try a sample and it just doesn't work, and I just pack it in and move on. Just move on to the next song. I would say maybe 30% of the songs I make actually end up getting released. Maybe a little higher than that. I try not to stress out on perfection too much. I used to have a philosophy professor who always said that perfection is the handmaiden of the good enough, and I ascribe to that. Good enough is good enough. The way I make music, I think of it like collage, you know? You're just taking little bits of things and snipping and pasting, and just trying to make something different, trying to make something that feels original with the little bits and pieces that you have. So now it's the point where I start to actually shape this into a song with different sections and adding and removing things. I decided I wanted to start with the sample. You know, a lot of times I start with drums to open up the track, but it gets kind of boring after a while. I decided I want to start with the chorus, so I'm dragging the chorus over. As you can see, I'm just creating different sections and giving it a sense of movement. This is me sort of sketching out a rough outline, intro, chorus, verse, adding some kick to the bridge so that it sort of has a bit more motion. You know, it builds up a little bit more. And that's what I mean by adding and subtracting, you know. Trying to make different parts unique. Like even with sampling being limited, you can give it a sense of momentum and change by just adding and subtracting. And that's why I've got all these different samples on standby, so I can just drag them into different parts. Now we need to add a little ending. I'm doing a little technique I like to do, which is kind of old school, but having it end on a delay, so you get that hit and then you get the delay. So I'm just making a separate track for my delay. So we've got a rough sketch. This is where I decide that the verse is a little busy, so I do a pretty old school technique of soloing the low end but not the high end. So you get the bass and you get sort of a muddy iteration of the keys, but it leaves more space for the vocals, because when I rap over this, it's gonna leave space. And that's something you want out of a verse, is you want it to make space for the vocals. And that's pretty much it. Alright, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then maybe I'll make another video about my music making adventures. But stay safe, keep warm, love ya.